Hello and welcome here at my session at Vue.js Nation conference. And Happy New Year if you are allowed to say that at the end of January basically, but still. Anyway, I'm so glad you spent your time with me here and want to know more about getting visual, or in other words, to learn more about visual testing in Vue applications. Let's kick off the conversation with some little facts about me. I'm a front-end developer at Shopware, which is a company providing an open source e-commerce platform. But besides being a developer, I have 5 years of experience in QA, so quality assurance, which makes me quite passionate about test automation and passionate about combining those two traits. I'm a meetup organizer and Cypress Ambassador, and I became a GDE for web technologies, I guess 2 months ago. So yeah, but I'm the least important person here in the room. So let's get finally started. Well, I don't know. Besides of being a developer, I'm a user of applications, user of apps, of websites, and sometimes being this, I encounter some bugs. Like bugs which are not release blocking. There might be smile UI errors or typos, stuff which is just looking ugly. And you will find them basically anywhere. And they leave you with a certain impression if you don't fix them. Take a look at this little screen here. The string keine Mitteilungen in the center of the screen. Or in English, it means no notifications. It looks really broken, right? It's doubled, it's like divided apart. It makes a certain impression. And this is taken by Apple's iOS. So such small UI errors can happen in the products of larger companies, basically anywhere. This can be, as said, fact for many large companies like Google, where the button is in the wrong location, or Facebook, where the buttons have wrong padding, right? There are so many examples, and it's nothing usual. It's nothing unusual about it. Just, I think it's still problematic, even if they're not release blocking or impeding any functionality. And aside from my own perfectionism, when it comes to those bugs, I wonder about one thing. Imagine you are a customer at an online shop, or basically any application with lots of those UI errors, which looks broken, shows no signs of care. Would you trust such an application, for example, with your credit card data? Especially when it comes to the following fact that we are basically all humans developing apps. And, well, even if you might get into the traps to say, okay, we are humans, we are to blame, I'm not completely sure about that. Because it's what makes us humans, right? It's actually a well-known phenomenon in psychology that we act that way. There are a couple of examples in the internet to see this effect, which I will explain, like the famous whodunit by Do the Tests. I guess it was made for a UK traffic campaign, or all those videos showcasing a moonwalking gorilla. And in all those videos, in all of those examples, half of the spectators do not notice the gorilla or the changes done in whodunit. Basically, any obvious changes in their view may remain unnoticed. And this is called unintentional blindness, which is basically in detail a person fails to notice an unexpected stimulus in the vicinity solely because of a lack of attention and not because of any visual deficits or defects or something. This is normal, this can happen. But you could say now to me, like, no, isn't this what automation is for? We have good test automation, we have unit tests, we have integration tests, we have end-to-end testing. Shouldn't they protect us from those human flaws? Well, yes and no. because tests will only do what they are supposed to test. I like to sum it up in the sentence of end-to-end testing doesn't look left or right. And so, as a result, many things might remain undetected if they are not explicitly written down in the test. And this can be valid for everything outside of your concept, so side effects or anything. So there's a blind spot when it comes to end-to-end testing. But still, how can we solve this problem? Human flaws on the one side and the blind spot in end-to-end testing at the other. Well, it's basically like that. We need to give our tests eyes. Or packaged in other words, we want to do visual testing. Basically, I'm always thinking about a spot the difference or a search puzzle, which I loved to do in my childhood. I don't know if you saw my promo video for this session. I did it by purpose because I hid 3 differences in these pictures, in the frames. So let's take a look at all those 2 frames of this promo video. And can you spot that? Well, let's see. You see, before there were a penguin stuffed animal, and then it was an elephant. The next one is this box on the bottom. It's suddenly turning white. And when it comes to me, in the second half of the video, I'm wearing some jewelry. Sorry, bad word. These are the differences, and we as human, we spot them quite fast, right? So we want to teach our tests exactly that. We want a test to spot those differences. And that's basically a screenshot comparison. You will take a basic screenshot as a status quo, which will show you what's correct. And then you will take a new current screenshot, for example, from your branch or your feature you're working on, and compare those screenshots and highlight the differences. When we have those highlighted differences, then we can decide whether the change is desired or not. And of course, the test itself cannot decide that by itself. How could it? Of course, there are some tools providing some machine learning or AI support, but in my opinion, that's not enough yet. So a human is still necessary to review those changes and decide if it's an actual change we did because we changed some classes, we did a refactoring, we implemented new features, or if it's not intended, like a bug or a side effect or anything like this. Okay, when it comes to implementing visual testing in your Vue project, there are a couple of tools you may look at. For example, Applet tools, Percy, Chromatic. But I am especially interested in open source solutions. Many custom implementations are available if you look for it. And my favorite one is the Visual Regression Tracker, which I will want to showcase in this session. So both tools are made for managing the results of visual tests and provide you the workflow of approval or rejection. So if you approve, your pipeline will be green. If you reject, your pipeline will fail, of course. And both of those tools are framework independent, but well suited, for example, for Cypress, which I use in my daily doing with my Vue applications. So first I will show you the Visual Regression Tracker because I favor it because it's open source, it's a self-hosted solution, and I love Docker. Well, when you want to set up the Visual Regression Tracker, the servers where you can do the approvals and rejections, you need to have Docker installed, so please take care of this beforehand. And then you just need to download an installation script and run it. So in this case, you're done for the diff management service. When it comes to integrating it to Cypress, it's fairly easy as well. It's a typical Cypress plugin, so at first you will install it with your favorite package manager like npm or yarn or something. Then you will add the commands to your commands file, which is, for example, commands.js or index.js, however you configured it. And afterwards, until Cypress version 10, you will need to have a little import in the plugin files or in the Cypress config.json if you use Cypress 10 or higher. So it's the basic plugin workflow. And then in your Cypress JSON, if it's below Cypress 10 or in the Cypress config file, you need to do some configurations for environment files, like the project, the API key, branch name, stuff like that. So it's plain default Cypress, so no steep learning curve or something. And afterwards, you can start implementing the point where you want to make a screenshot in your end-to-end test. So as you see, implementing visual testing in a Vue application is like doing an end-to-end test, but with some little additions. And those little additions are just like custom commands. So you use this cy_track command to make a screenshot of your complete page at that point where you want to have it. Or if you want to have a scope on only one element, you can chain it like you're used to in Cypress, like using cy_get to get an element, and then doing the track command for screenshotting the element. Here we see the approval workflow. So here you can either accept the div, so if it's an intended change, or you can reject it if it's not intended, making your pipeline failing. And there's one little catch. If you run the visual version tracker for the first time, it will always fail because you need to say that your baseline screenshot is the right one, the one you want to use. So this is no problem then. But if you got some runs before, on the left side here, you will see the baseline, so the status quo screenshot, the one you use as a basis for comparison. And the next one, the one on the right side, is your new screen from your implementation. And we see here in the new screenshot, the menu is opened. And if you want to have it even more obvious that this is the difference we want to take a look at, we can highlight it in red. So it's really obvious where the difference is. And then we can go on and say, okay, let's approve it because maybe it's normal for the menu to be open. Or if we want to reject it because we maybe did a bug or run into a little issue. Yeah, because it sounds quite great, right, to have this visual regression tracking. But when there's light, there's always shadow, right? So it might be a difficulty I encountered before if the menu is open, for example, or a pitfall I experienced. So let's take a look at those. And of course with solutions, which I was able to apply perfectly well to Vue applications. So first, and I guess it's a familiar for white time specifications. Then because issues connected to the time can occur in visual testing as well and can lead to notifications like, hey, look, there's a change. But the change is no big deal because it's normal that time is running, right? Picture that. You have an application with a little dashboard in it. The visual tests are executed on a nightly build, and there's a change of date. So the change from yesterday to today to tomorrow. And if you display a date, this will be changed as well. And it can happen even more often if you include hours, minutes, or even seconds. So we don't want to be notified because of the time changing, right? Well, the solution could be freezing the time on client side. In Cypress, you can do it with using the cy_clock command, but there might be other ways to do it in other testing frameworks. It's basically faking the time and then freezing it so it's always consistent and you won't be notified anymore. Another issue which I encounter a lot are loading times, which might, or basically anything where I need to wonder or ask myself if I take the right screenshot at the right timing. Because remember this little menu? Maybe I was doing a screenshot too late or too early. What if my website in general is still loading? Or especially when it comes to Vue applications, my element is still rendering or basically not finished rendering. What if my UI is still changing? This might this might cause flakiness. So, well, we can counter it in the same way we always counter flakiness. We really need to make sure that all load times have been completed, that all appropriate UI changes has been made, and we need to take care that everything of this is happening before you create the snapshots. And you can basically do this, like seen in this example, with assertions. So wait for consistent snapshots, wait that anything is loaded, completed. I think this should be a general best practice for UT testing, right? And I know I'm annoying when it comes to this, but please really focus on waiting dynamically and efficiently here. Last but not least, this is my favorite example when it comes to pitfalls in visual testing. You might want to know, okay, it's an image and a login screen with a form. What can go wrong, right? Well, this shows the login screen from the Shopware 6 administration. And this image here is depending on the time where you log in or you open this site. So depending on time, different images are available. And they will be randomly picked from an image pool. So depending on the time and then still randomly. So this screen will always trigger a change, or basically almost always. Just not if we're lucky enough to have the same picture 2 times or something. So it's really annoying. Same with this one. It's a time specification which is coming from the server and it's read-only, so it won't have any effects to freeze the time client side. And it's by purpose like this, so it's okay for this time to change. So we will still be notified of a well-known change. We can solve this by ignoring the changes. In the visual regression tracker, for example, you can highlight some elements which the tracker should ignore. Or you could use a custom commands to intercept basically or invoke other CSS. But please take in mind that in this case, you will basically change or interfere with the test. So when it comes to fixed order time, if you make the color of the front of the font invisible, or for example for the login image, if you insert a consistent image, you will interfere with the test. So I always advise you then to document this change so everyone knows that it's like this, and that you write a separate test, maybe an unit test, integration test, whatever suits you best, to still cover this case and make sure you don't hide tests by interfering with it. Alright, so our Cypress tests are now detective. Let's call them Sherlock Cypress, or Sherlock Playwright, or Sherlock whatever tests you're writing. We taught them to be a little more the way we humans spot differences, and this can be a lifesaver because it catches errors caused by side effects you might not be aware of. If there are 4 lessons to remember from this talk, it's those. Please give your tests eyes. Like, teach it to look beyond the given path, the given concept, and the given tasks, and make them behave like a search puzzle. This can be achieved through visual testing. Simply put, it's a screenshot comparison. And if you can't get a consistent screenshot, it's okay to interfere with the test, but please take into account to cover the original with another suitable test so you don't hide any errors. And if you search for tools as starting points, you could go for the Visual Regression Tracker or PerCIO if you prefer software as a service solutions. Alright, so what else to say then? Thank you. Thank you for your time and for listening to me. If you got any questions, feel free to put them here in the chat or ask me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or wherever you find me. And until then, see you soon.